So the 2024 AFL Grand Final has finally just happened between the Brisbane Lions and the Sydney Swans. And I think everybody and their dad is extremely disappointed with, I think, the outcome and especially the play of the Sydney Swans. Again, they look like a shell of their former self, and what we've pretty much seen throughout the whole entire 2024 season, they were nothing like that, and they were a completely different team that was absolutely dismantled by the Brisbane Lions. There clearly needs to be a change at Sydney with a couple of things that they are potentially doing, and I'm of course going to be going over all of that and more in today's video. But before I get into it, again, there is still a massive amount of you guys who watch these videos that are not subscribed to the channel. So if you guys wanted to do a favor, and please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and of course turn on that notification bell so you never miss a video and a chance to hear my slightly sexy voice talk into a $400 overpriced microphone that sometimes sounds like a KFC speaker box. Again, the Sydney Swans absolutely crumbled in this grand final, not for the first time, but the second time in basically 3 years. Them getting thrashed in 2022 and them getting thrashed in 2024. But this time it was a completely different game. It's not like a situation where I think that Chris Fagan and the Brisbane Lions absolutely outclassed and outcoached the Sydney Swans, but it was more of a it was like the Swannies kind of looked like they forgot how they play football and kind of forgot everything that horses taught them in the last couple years. Also, side note, a little bit of a conspiracy. Does anyone actually know why he's called Horse? Is that just something I need to debunk in a future video on this channel? I don't know. I've got my film theory about it, but leave a like and comment if you like to see that video. But even in the first quarter, when it was slightly even, you could really tell that the Sydney Swans did not look like the team that we have been watching this whole entire season. And you get to the second quarter, and by the end of it, it was like, what are we legitimately watching? One of the biggest parts of the Swans and how they go about their game style is they are a team who will absolutely love to use the corridor, and by the time they use the corridor and get near their forward 50, they can sometimes chip it around and even switch the ground till they find an open player in the forward 50, usually being a player on the 40 or the 35, where they'll immediately bullet kick it to him and find him open for a mark, where that player will have a pretty comfortable set shot in range. But instead, for a ton of the grand final, especially when they started to get really bad and the Brisbane Lions started to get on top, you could see the Sydney Swans were just smashing it into the forward line and kicking it to the 10 or the 15, hoping that one of their key forwards would take a mark. And it just looked like a situation where not only was Joel and Marty being destroyed by any defender he was on there, but if Joel and Marty is getting destroyed, which does happen sometimes, he will usually look for a Hayden McLean or a Logan McDonald to come out and help him. But it doesn't help when you've got Logan McDonald, who had to step into the ruck, I think, a lot more than he usually does, because at times Brodie Grundy was not only losing to Darcy Fort, but when he was on Joe Danaher was easily able to push him out and showed a really weak part in Brodie Grundy's game that has been in it for a long time, especially the last couple of years, where he's not fierce enough when it matters and he just gets bodied by Joe Danaher, a key forward. And they, I think, kind of realized this and played McLean a lot more in the ruck than what they probably wanted to. So it left Logan McDonald to be the other option for Joel and Marty. And first of all, he should not have played. He looked slow, injured, and really, really brittle out there. And I don't know why they decided to play him when he was in a moon boot 3 days before the grand final. Whose idea to cook was that? It's legitimately so stupid. So then you had the Swannies, a team that usually loves to do, chip it around and maybe even switch the ground at the 60 and then chip kick it or bullet kick it into the 45 or the 35 and get an open player. Instead of having that game style, they were just bombing it into the forward line, which may have worked in some other games, but clearly didn't work in this one when you've got Joel Amadi being destroyed, Hayden McLean having to go and play ruck, and Logan McDonald be seriously injured to the point where I think he got subbed off at like half time. That was an absolute disaster by the Swans. I also feel really, really bad for the Swans backline because one thing that the Swans, I think, needed to change, and it's easier in hindsight to say this was one of the big things they needed to change now, but clearly after the game, we realized one of the big things they needed to change was the backline was getting destroyed because the midfield was getting killed and the ball was basically being pumped down there so many times where the backline for Sydney just were not able to hold up, and they were just getting countless of forward 50 entries slammed onto their head, and they weren't able to do anything about it. You could legitimately tell the Swans were killing for a clearance player today with players like Warner and Goulden, who are usually, when I see them in the midfield, they typically like to be more of your aggressive type of midfielders who will really sometimes independently look for another player to get a clearance to hit it out to them so they can therefore go and use the footy. And for the most part of the whole entire Swan season, they have had players to do that, like Callum Mills and Taylor Adams. But in today's game, in the grand final, there was no one to do that. Callum Mills was not put in there to go and get a clearance. He was injured and couldn't play. And Taylor Adams, the guy they prioritized to bring into the previous free agency, they chose to play an injured Logan McDonald over and Robbie Fox, who had no impact on the game whatsoever. And they were killing for a clearance player that bad that they brought Luke Parker, who was tagging Harris Andrews in the forward line, took him out of the forward line and put him in the midfield to be a clearance player. And look, he unfortunately didn't help that much when he went in there, but somehow he was able to get more free as a forward when he pushed down, and he kicked like 3 in the last quarter, which was so random to see. But you could tell that that midfield for the Swannies desperately needed to be changed. They were in desperate need for a clearance player in there. Again, you had Isaac Heaney and Goulden with Warner at a lot of times in there struggling to get a clearance, getting absolutely out-muscled and destroyed by, you know, Lachie Neale and Ashcroft, who are genuine clearance players. And these guys aren't as natural as a clearance player as what those guys are. And they were just getting destroyed. You could tell they desperately needed a Taylor Adams in this game. And I just wondered if Taylor Adams played instead of Logan McDonald and Callum Mills was healthy to play instead of like Robbie Fox, would this have been a way different game? Because if the midfield didn't get absolutely destroyed, the backline wouldn't have been absolutely destroyed. The thing is, we can say it would have been a different game, but at the end of the day, the forward line and how the midfielders kicked it into the forward line would have probably still been a disaster. And could that have been a coaching thing? I don't know. We still don't know why the Swannies were just smashing it into the forward line and placing it on the tall key forwards' heads like 10 meters out from goals. But my God, it was like a 5-year-old could read the play every time, and each Brisbane defender were like being touched inappropriately by how good the ball was being placed on their heads for them just to intercept it. Yeah, really bad play by the Swans. There definitely needed to be a change for them, and it would have been, again, Taylor Adams should have played in this grand final. I guess easy to look back at it in hindsight, but also if there was a head behind this, you know, if I was coaching the Swans, and I think if a lot of us were coaching the Swans and we realized that we know all of these players and we think, hold on, do we have a really good contested clearance guy in there? It may have been a situation where you're like, hold on, we need to put someone in there, especially if Callum Mills is not getting up to play. Taylor Adams should have been that guy. Logan McDonald should not have played. That is the massive change for Sydney next year. You can clearly tell they need clearance players next year, and Taylor Adams will, again, I think, be straight away back in that team next season. So will Callum Mills, and Luke Parker will see if they try and keep him or if he's going to go to North. Again, other than that, Katy Perry performed. I thought she was really good in the last couple years. You can tell I think performances on the AFL have become some of the best in the world, and them getting Kiss and Katy Perry and continuing to level up every single year it really makes you think, who are they going to go with next year again? I've got some suggestions if the AFL is watching this video. We got, I think Linkin Park would be cool, Coldplay, Bruno Mars, Post Malone, Queen and Adam Lambert. Those are just 5 off the top of the dome that I think would not only be as good as what Katy Perry did, but would hopefully be better and continuously upgrade and, I guess, still outshine the NRL. Again, if you guys haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions on the grand final and how you guys think it went and whatnot. I'd very much like to know. Don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/flowing channels. Links for them will be in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.